Barkeep, a man could die of thirst in this pub. Somebody buy me a pint, please. Hello out there, everybody, and welcome to episode number 21 of the Empty Pockets podcast with Skip Healy. Today is going to be part 2 of my interview with my great friend and legendary piper, Captain Stuart D. Samson, M.B.E. We started off today with a 2/4 march composed by Stuart in honor of one of his relations named George Mackenzie Samson, VC. VC standing for Victoria Cross, which he was awarded for his actions in the terrible battle during the First World War at Gallipoli. Let's get into the rest of the interview now with Stuart. A lot of music today, a lot of videos coming up. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for checking us out. I'd like to circle back now to a section from part 1 of my interview with Stuart, where he kind of in passing mentioned Prince Charles, then Prince Charles, now the King, making a joke with him about how he should compose a tune for a gentleman lovingly known as the Tash. Now, the Tash was actually Lieutenant General Sir Peter W. Graham, KCB, CBE. And we're going to have Stuart retell the story a little bit, added in a few photos, and we're going to follow that up with the tune, The Tash of the North.
So, he even commissioned me to write a tune.
I remember that story. Yeah, that's a great story.
Yes, it was just a joke. He came up and said, you should compose a tune and call it, because our regimental march is Cock of the North.
Right.
And our general, who was colonel of the regiment, his nickname was the Tash, because he had a moustache. Mm-hmm. So he says, why don't you compose a tune and call it The Tash of the North? You see, and he had a wee laugh, and then he sort of walked away. But he just said it as a joke, I think. But I did it. So. And I had to go through all the whole protocol to get in touch with the palace and say that I'd written this tune, and he had to sign it. and presented it to the general. So
Mhm.
the general actually passed away earlier this year. So that was where one of the events where I played, where I seen King Charles, because he attended the funeral of his former general, Sir Peter Graham, who actually was responsible for producing the two Gordon Highlanders volumes of pipe music,
Mhm.
which are two really big, thick books. There's about 300 tunes in each book. So.
Mhm.
Now, Stuart, when you held the extremely prestigious position of Director of Army Pipe Band Music, I'm sure that brought you quite often into direct contact with the royal family. And I thought I remembered you mentioning to me at one point that you actually came up with you designed the protocol for the music to be used for the funeral of Queen Elizabeth. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, well, the part of the responsibility there'd be there would be regular meetings to discuss the plan
Mhm.
for any state funerals that may happen.
Mhm.
So there's got to be a sort of plan musically to what was going to be played. So I think because just before I took over as director, the Queen Mother had passed away. And there was like a mass pipes and drums, like of 200 people on parade, and they played, I think it was 3 tunes, but I knew that the musical contribution by the mass pipes and drums of the same number for Her Majesty was like something like 6 sets of music, but there wasn't any. That was so. I put sort of made suggestions, let's just say, and which were approved. Because it's a strange 70 or 75 beats per minute. There's no natural tunes that are actually that. So you're taking a tune that's maybe 45 paces per minute, and you're sort of then slowing it down, but playing it in double time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite strange taking a 6/8 and doing it in a compound tune as well. It's quite difficult to find, the right tunes that works with. So yeah, but yeah. So once I left, the plan was in place, and then it might have changed. You never know because somebody else goes in, and they just kept on being sort of probably looked at until whenever that time came along. I would say though, when it did come along, I was really nervous because is it the same music or is it different? And it was, I think 95% of it was the same music.
Well, it was indeed a very moving tribute viewed by millions and millions of people around the world. I'm sure also in your time in the position, you also have a little more light-hearted stories of some of your interactions with the royal family. Could you share the one you told me? Well, you told me quite a few, but there was one about an event at Windsor Castle that was pretty good. Would you mind? Would you feel okay with sharing that one with us?
Yeah, there's nothing confidential or nothing. The Queen, for those who have been lucky enough to meet her, she puts you at ease. She's very understanding, and once you meet her, she's very easy to sort of communicate with. But I played at Windsor Castle the first time that a non-Foot Guards regiment had played at a state banquet, and I was there with the Highlanders. And then the sovereign piper said to me, "You may be asked to, once you play, and the table in Windsor's huge. You play a 4-part competition march to go around the table. Normally that would take you around the table. The table was that big to play. The tune was a Clan McCall 2/4 march. We had to play it 3.5 times through this 4-part tune.
Oh, jeez.
Get around the table.
My God. My God.
One long. It's about 100 meters long. It's just like all gold cutlery and that. So afterwards, we came out. And then the Queen's piper came to me and said, she's getting up, she's leaving the table, so she's obviously not wanting you to go in and sit down next to her. So basically, pack your bags and leave. So I told the 12 pipers that played, right, let's go on to the transport and we'll head back to London, where we were staying. And then there was some officer was running down the corridors shouting, "Where's the pipe major? Her Majesty wants to speak to the pipe major." And so I had to go all the way back, you see. So I said, what's the protocol? And this officer says, there's no protocol. She's expecting you now. You must go. I says, well, where? Go through this room, and you get to the other end of the room, and there's 2 big double doors. Just open the door and walk in. And I says, surely is there nobody going to be there to introduce me? No, she's waiting for you. So I said, okay. So I made my way through this other room, which was all full of people that had got up from the dinner table. So there was like Prime Minister Blair and politicians and all these famous people, and said, excuse me.
Big hole.
And I got to the other end of the room, and there was the double door, and so I thought, well, there's nobody there. Will I knock or will I just go in? I thought, well, he said just go in, so I opened the door and walked in, and there was Her Majesty, and she had a wee mirror up, and she was putting sort of powder on her face.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh no.
Private Samson.
And no, she just closed the mirror. She was fine. She says, "Oh yes, please come in, please come in." And then we were having a chat, and the Queen Mother came in, and some of the other members of the royal family. Yeah, it was. Yeah, she wasn't bothered at all. It was just normal.
Yeah, sure.
So it was quite nice to see that normality, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Jesus. Um,
And there was another story which was quite nice, and it was more recent. It was probably about a year before she passed away. I was kindly invited to go up and play a Gillies, not Gillies Ball, a dinner night up at Balmoral Castle, along with two other two directors of Army Bagpipe Music, plus myself. So three directors and the outgoing and incoming sovereign piper. So the five of us were to play, and you're all dressed up in black tie and play around the dinner table. We arrived there, did a wee rehearsal, and then a message came in saying the Queen's decided she's going to have a barbecue tonight rather than sitting at the dinner table. So we're all dressed up in black tie and all that, so we're playing a barbecue. And they went to a very small cottage next to the loch in the estate. So we had to go cross country in these 4x4 vehicles to get up to where this cottage was. And we had to wait for about an hour, get tuned up, and there was hundreds of midges and getting eaten alive in this wood. But it was really quite nice. And when it got to the point, there was 6 people there with flaming torches. And we marched down the forest track with the flaming torches either side of us, down in front of this little cottage, and we played our music, and she came out, and there was five of the royal family there and 3 other guests. It's really small.
It's very small.
And she came out with her Wellington boots on, her long coat and her headscarf, because she liked wearing that, and wearing her black tie on. And we played, and then once we finished, we marched back into the forest with flaming torches beside us, put the pipes into the vehicle. And normally, if you play in the castle, you play and that's it. You'll not see Her Majesty after that. Only the sovereign piper will see her. But because of the situation, we all got invited into the cottage. So she ensured that one of the, in fact, I think it was, I can't remember, it was one of the members of the royal family was summoned. She summoned, you go and pour the pipers a dram, so we all got a whiskey.
Nice.
And she chatted away for 10 minutes, thanked us all for playing, and thought it was really quite special coming playing out of the forest. And talking about some of the tunes, she's very knowledgeable on the music. So that was a real special moment as well. So I've been lucky enough to have been given these opportunities.
God, that must have been terrifying in its own way, standing in front of those giant double doors and just having to enter the room, not knowing what was on the other side. I mean, there could be security detail there that wouldn't be too happy with the doors flying open. But luckily, it all worked out very, very well. And also, I can't imagine such a distinguished group of pipers coming out of the woods like that under the torchlight. It just must have been an amazing thing, especially considering who the audience was you were about to play for. But you've also spent a fair amount of time over here in Switzerland, and I think you have composed a tune in honor of this grand little country. So let's have a listen to that right now also. So Stuart, can you tell us a little bit now how your association with the Basel Tattoo and Erik Julliard came about after your military career?
Yes, well, part of my responsibility as a director of Army bagpipe music was to be in charge of the mass pipes and drums and coordinate everything at the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. And when I started doing that in 2003, that was the first year the Top Secret Drum Corps performed at Edinburgh at the Tattoo. So that's when I first met Erik Julliard, who's now the chief executive and producer of the Basel Tattoo. And then over the 5 years, 6 years that I was the director, I'd met Erik a number of times. They were over in Sydney when we did the tattoo, for Edinburgh Tattoo in Australia. I was then involved in the Kremlin-Zoria mass pipes and drums, 16 pipe bands in Red Square in Moscow.
Oh.
And Erik had came up to watch that. So he could see all the things that I was doing. And he knew that I was retiring from the military in 2008. So he asked me, the tattoo started in 2006. And in 2007, he asked me if I would, I think it was the first time it was outdoors, if I would come and have a look with the chance of maybe, getting involved and helping.
Mhm.
And that was 2007. And here we are, 2025. I'm still there.
Must be doing something right.
It was really a very interesting musical program that Erik came up with for this part of the tattoo. It was a really nice blend of traditional Scottish tunes, a lot of your own compositions, a couple of traditional Irish tunes. The dance group also did a couple of a little bit of a mix between ballet, Scottish dance, a few Irish dance moves in there. Tremendous program. We certainly played it quite a few times over the years as well. So let's have a look at this great program from Basel Tattoo 2012 featuring the Isle of Craig dancers. And again, special thanks to Erik Julliard for permission to use this. Yeah, that was such a memorable series of performances. The weather cooperated, all of the technical issues were at an absolute minimum. Huge crowd, great crowd, 8,000 people or so every night. All the performers did their thing. The tattoo orchestra was great. I think we did a pretty good job as well, you and I. Really just a fantastic time. I mean, you have no idea the scale and scope of this production until you're a part of it. You know, hundreds and hundreds of musicians, dancers, singers, the second coordination between one act finishing, the next act coming on. It's just a monster to produce a show like this, and just a great job was done by everybody.
Well, the tradition of the tattoo, going back to certainly all the years that I did Edinburgh. I think my first Edinburgh tattoo was 1979 that I performed on. And like way back then, everything was very traditional. But the finale would always incorporate, you know, everybody getting onto the arena. So the whole cast is present, all the performers. And then they would play usually the national anthem, and then they would do an evening hymn. And the evening hymn would, a lot of the time, would incorporate into that the last post. We usually, you know, we a whole corps of buglers rather than a soloist up in the ramparts doing the last post sunset sort of rendition. And that would be followed by then the lone piper. So the evening hymn, it's all about reflection, and then the lone piper, it's all about also that moment of reflection, and then also like to give the sort of the feeling of it. Lights out, all the lights go out, and the lone piper plays, and at the end of that, that's the tattoo, that's it finished. Lights out, and then after that, it would be the lights would come on and everybody would march off. That would be the end of the tattoo. That's the sort of the traditional, the tattoo, the word tattoo, tattoo, that's sort of where it comes from. It's a Dutch word. And tattoo meant turn off the taps. So all the soldiers that were in the town and all that, you know, the bugler would go and play, the drummer would go and play the drum beating, and that would be the signal that turn off the taps, and all the soldiers have got to go back to barracks. And then that's it, and lights out.
Yeah. And now we come to one of the real highlights of my musical career. You know, I've been doing this a long time. I've played in a lot of places, but this next bit was just personally one of the most meaningful performances, or series of performances actually, that I've ever done. I still get chills every time I think about it, and it was quite a surprise that it happened. When Erik engaged me to come be a performer with the tattoo, I took the train from Volen here into Basel, about a 45-minute trip or so, not a big deal. Erik picked me up at the train station in Basel, which is where we actually met for the first time. He picked me up in one of the Basel Tattoo vehicles, and you, as I remember, were sitting in the back seat. And as we were driving away, Erik said to me, "Hey, Skip, look, you know, I know I talked to you about the dance set, but I have an idea for something that's going to be great in the finale for the evening hymn section of the program. It's this tune called The Band of Brothers, and I think it'll be fantastic with the fife and bagpipes." And I just looked over at Erik, who was driving, and just said, "All right, now you're just messing with me about this." He said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, Band of Brothers, that was a series on American television on a pay-per-view channel called Showtime." He said, "Yeah, exactly." And I said, "That was about E Company of the 101st Airborne, and as they fought their way across Europe, and it culminated with the Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes forest. Erik goes, yeah, okay, oh, great, you know exactly what it is. I said, Erik, what you don't know is my father. I try to get through this. I always choke up every time I talk about this. My father was in D Company of the 101st Airborne. He was right next to those guys in Bastogne through the whole thing. In fact, here are my father's wings, his jump wings as a paratrooper. And then Erik looked at me. He said, now you're messing with me. That can't be true. I said, no, Erik, absolutely. This brings this whole production into a whole other dimension. So again, with special thanks to Erik Julliard for permission to use this video. Let's have a look at the Band of Brothers.
Der Lone Piper Jason Bruce mit dem Stück Sleep, Deary Sleep auf dem Kasernenturm Ein weiteres traditionelles Element im Programm.
You know, I've done a lot of performances in a lot of places, in the last 50 years, as have you, Stuart. And, this whole 2012, that was my first experience in the tattoo world. And to be able to play a piece of music with so many phenomenal musicians and technicians in front of such a wonderful audience that directly related to my father's contributions towards freedom in the Second World War. It was, nearly overwhelming every night. I mean, every time I finished at the end of that piece, I would turn to my left and I would walk in front of all the masked bands. And there was the long row of drum majors that was there. And people in the audience couldn't see it because it was very dark and you're being distracted at that point to look at the next portion of the show. But all of the drum majors were very subtly tapping their maces on the ground as I walked off. And when I went under the grandstands, the next conductor was a Russian general director of music for the Russian military. Karlnikov was there, and at strict attention, saluting me because he too had been told the story eventually that my father had participated himself as a combat veteran directly in this piece having to do with the Band of Brothers. I mean, it was just an amazing experience, and I can't thank you enough for doing it with you, and certainly Erik Julliard for thinking to have me as a musician in this great event. I mean, I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, certainly. Well, Stuart, I would really like to thank you very, very much for sharing your time and your talent and your memories with us on the Empty Pockets podcast here for the last couple of weeks. I so much appreciate it. I hope everybody out there has also enjoyed hearing a little of your music and a little bit about your life. And for all of those bagpipers out there that would like to take on some of these great tunes that you've written, I believe you have a couple of books that are published. How can people get a hold of you? Can you tell us a little bit about these great collections of the compositions of Captain Stuart Samson?
Yeah, well, I've been lucky enough to have this sort of been blessed that I can actually compose music. It's something that I've really picked up on probably in the last 30 years. Once I become involved in live music events, started writing more music. And I think also when I left the army, I was teaching students doing a degree in Scottish traditional music, and I was teaching the bagpipe part of that for the 9 years that I was in Glasgow. So I was very lucky to be, working along the top talent that was coming through, and they've all got to write music, and I was sharing the office with a prominent piper and small pipes piper as well, Finlay MacDonald. So we were sort of bouncing off each other. He would come in, oh, I've written a new tune at the weekend, and I says, oh, that's very good. That sounds great. I actually wrote 3 tunes this weekend.
Did you? That's good for you then.
So you're just sort of bouncing off one another all the time. But so he said to me, he says, you should start thinking about writing a book because you've got so many tunes now. So I took out my first book. It must have been around about 2010 or 11. Lands of Bends and Glens and Heroes, and that title is the first line of the regimental toast of the Gordon Highlanders, or in fact all Highland regiments. That's the first line of it. There's eight lines in the Gaelic toast, but that's the English translation. Lands of Bends and Glens and Heroes. In fact, I've got a wee. That's the book.
Look at that dashing young man there.
Yeah, that's the black tie on again. So that's there's about 60 compositions in that book, and then it was during lockdown and COVID. I was planning on eventually taking a second book, but it wasn't going to be for another couple of years. But then because I was locked in the house basically, so I just said, right, let's just start writing music.
Yep.
And and I just there's no distractions, and I just seemed to be coming up with stuff, no bother. It was like, wow, where's this all coming from? So I just felt I was on a roll. But anyway, so I managed to produce my second book, the Park Grove collection. Park Grove is the name of my house here in Blairgowrie. So that's where it all happened, So I took it out as a digital book, thinking nobody can. It's easier. It's digital. There's no post. There's no because of COVID and all that. And then everybody started getting in touch with me. I mean, the book did really well digitally, but everybody's going, when's the hard copy coming out? I want a physical book. So, but it was quite good because the money that I made on the digital book funded the print.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because you have to invest money in getting things printed.
I had no idea.
Printing costs money.
I had no idea it was actually going to work out that way, but it actually worked out quite well. So, I brought out my second book, which your compositions in Skip Healy's Reel, the Park Grove collection.
Oh, goodness. Beautiful picture.
And now I'm
And
probably
thank you, by the way, for writing a tune for me. I appreciate
Yes,
that very
pleasure.
much. Skip Healy's Reel. Great tune.
And now I've just keep writing and writing and writing, and I'm probably getting close now to I can start thinking about bringing out a third volume of music. So
Fantastic.
it's well over 150 tunes that I've composed now. So
Wow. Wow. It's amazing what you can do with 9 notes, isn't it? It's just endless. Endless.
Well, there's a couple of notes. There's a couple of notes you can play as well that are false. Like C and F naturals.
Mm-hmm.
Which, but yeah, a lot of the purists doesn't like to hear these notes played on the bagpipes. Although, and they're quite hard to get the tuning right, just to get it absolutely perfect. But I did let Christoph Walter one year hear these notes, and he's going, "Oh!" He says, "That's the same key as the House of the Rising Sun. You can play a tune in the pipes," and he put something together one year for the team. But I had to play a C and an F natural. So
there you go, everybody. Go ahead and get in contact with Stuart. Get in line to get early copies of Stuart Samson's compilation number 3, whatever it is going to be called. It will be well worth the investment. The man writes beautiful tunes, plays them beautifully, and he's just a hell of a guy. So to close out this episode and our chapters with Stuart Samson, a little look behind the scenes at the Basel Tattoo. There's a thing that's called the cast bar. And after the final performance, wrapping up the tattoo, a lot of the performers get up on stage and play some bits from their pieces. And here's a little bit of Stuart and I and a couple of hundred drunk cast members. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you very much, Stuart. And again, a very, very special thanks to Erik Julliard from Basel Tattoo Productions for letting us use some of this great video. Thanks, everybody. See you at the pub. Cheers, all.